this is Jackson Rose. I'm Jackie Rose, and this is my mother, Sally.
Hello. I haven't been here in a while. This is my first time on your new channel, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Oh.
So welcome if you're new here, and if you're coming over from my previous channel, welcome back. This is my mother, Sally, and I think we should start off right away with your fabulous good news.
My fabulous good news of being where I am today as opposed to where I was a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am out the other side of having lymphoma and going through the treatment and all that it entailed, and I am here today, and I am in remission or cancer-free, who knows, but there isn't anything showing up on the magic machines.
Yes. So we're thrilled about that.
Right.
Right.
Beyond thrilled.
Yeah, I guess.
It's a great relief, yes.
Yeah. And Sally agreed to come on today. This is a special episode. It might be in one part, it might be in two parts. We'll just see. But it's all about January and Junko Okamoto and catching up with Sally and Lili. And so we'll have Junko Okamoto weaving her way through this episode. On this channel, one of the things we've been doing is reading from Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act. And I wanted to share the next chapter, the next piece. And what better person to share it with than my mother.
Oh, can't wait to hear this.
Yes, who is an artist. So this chapter is called The Source of Creativity. We begin with everything. Everything seen, everything done, everything thought, everything felt, everything imagined, everything forgotten, and everything that rests unspoken and unthought within us.
Yes.
This is our source material, and from it we build each creative moment. This content does not come from inside us. The source, and that's capitalized, is out there, a wisdom surrounding us, an inexhaustible offering that is always available. We either sense it, remember it, or tune into it. Not only through our experiences, it may also be dreams, intuitions, subliminal fragments, or other ways still unknown by which the outside finds its way inside. To the mind, this material appears to come from within, but that's an illusion. There are tiny fragments of vastness of source stored within us. These precious wisps arise from the unconscious like vapor and condense to form a thought, an idea.
Ah, the creative process. I love that book, by the way. I read that during my convalescing time.
Yes. And I thought we could show, I thought we could illustrate that with, I'm going to start off with what you're wearing, and then we can just work, and we'll see this cohesive, unplanned palette that's going on. But it literally, for us, we traditionally had this Junko in June or Junko in January alliteration, and you are wearing a kimono from a different Junko. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, this kimono was a gift from Junko Stewart.
Do you want to stand up just a little? And I'll try to take more footage of Sally, but just so you can see the beautiful fabric. Just hold still. There you go. Yeah, that beautiful
It's a very
palette.
traditional.
Okay.
And how that came to be was a joyful stepping out of my comfort zone. There was a little music class. Joe was all of about 3 years old, and I signed up at the Monroe Street Fine Arts, I think it is, to do a toddler music class. And in this, this was Junko's first teaching experience. And she is an extraordinary musician, just a person that just exudes happiness and joy. Anybody in Madison knows Junko Stewart through her. She's just out there on the square doing, she was, I think, in drum and bugle early on. But anyway, she's just a treasure of a human being. And in the process of doing this wonderful little class with toddlers where you played wonderful instruments and Joe and I loved it, she and I struck up a conversation about my passion for quilting. So this is, Joe just turned 20, so, it's almost 20 years ago. And I was doing a quilt show in my home. And Junko came to me with just a lovely gift of scraps, because I told her I like to work in scraps. And she brought me a bundle of scraps that were her mother's and her grandmother's from Japan. And also she said, and you might like this kimono. You could cut that up. It was what she was thinking. I could cut that up and use it in my quilts. And I never did. It kind of hung in my closet. And I've loved it, but it never quite, I don't know, because I was larger, it didn't quite fit me in the same way. And now it's like this perfect robe. And I feel so in this lovely hug from the joyful time she and I have had. And we've had other interactions, but getting that special 1940-ish quilt scraps and making the quilt that I have in the living room, it's been a story that the thread of that little class that we took. I had several people in that class that became good friends, over time when, going to nursery school and stuff. So it was a pivotal moment for me.
It was such a generous gift.
And it was such a generous gift. And what I did was, because this was, this kimono was, it's all hand piece. That's how they're all made.
Is it linen?
I don't think it's linen. It feels almost like it's a very thin wool. That's what I'm wondering. I should really look that up, because I love the fabric. I love the colors. What I did, this was what I wanted to get to, is being short, I could never wear it the length that it was. So I cut off the bottom and just, hemmed it. And then I cut off the sleeves so that, I hemmed them. So it's very...
You did alterations.
I did alterations. Very, just kind of as it is. And then I had the gift of all those scraps.
Right.
And so those have found, many of, if you know me and if you've, had my quilts over this interim of time, you might even have a piece of this in a quilt that you have. You might look at it and go check.
Sally Journey Quilt.
Yeah, Sally Journey Quilts. There might be, because they get put in there. They have such a lovely depth of color. Anyway, so that's where we're at, Junko in January.
Yes.
And we're just, celebrating her.
Well, and I was thinking about this creative act, and I'm going to show the Junko Okamoto on my needles, and I just want to demonstrate this. So this happened to be the book I was reading, and it has this beautiful,
that is beautiful
graphic, and I photographed. And then this happens to be the sweater I'm knitting right now, which is the Twigs.
It's gorgeous.
And then where's the quilt that you just finished?
Yeah, she just discovered this in my,
So like, you just layer all these things together, and it does make me feel like it illustrates the point of that quote.
The source is swerving around, and it just taps on you, taps on me, goes out there.
Yeah.
It's all around us.
So this is what I mean by the sweater needs me in it. I think it looks better on me than in my hands. And this is a complete shift for me from knitting for, I would say, I'm going to be really blunt, knitting for portrait on the camera, close-ups for Instagram to make content, and because it's such a vital way of having access to my knitting community. However, my life is not lived on Instagram. It's lived here with light and feelings and impermanent being and making. And so this feels really good to me, to design this knit to be in balance, like with me. So it's noticed, I'm noticed. There's not one isn't overpowering the other. They're complementing each other. And I guess I would say it reminds me of Rosenblatt and her literary theory reader text poem. And it's kind of like, this is the text, the yarn, the dyer, the designer, all of those, the silhouette, all those things are things that we get to encounter as readers or knitters. But the poem is this experience, the art we make of our life. And so when these two things come together, well, that's the poem, that's the art, that's what I'm after. And a lot of my making has just been creating texts, which is completely fine because I've learned so much from it, and I've made beautiful texts, but I want to pursue that additional layer of how am I going to live into it? What am I going to, who am I going to be when I'm wearing this? What are my experiences? And who am I while I make it? Well, while I make it, I deal with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of boredom, a lot of mistakes. It's a matter of a bit of stamina and a bit of faith in what's going to come. Because of course I can't design it, we knit and we only see a portion of the design. We don't see the whole design. So at this point you don't get to see these colors balanced out somewhere else. You don't get to see these with pants. You don't get to see them in an outfit. I have to keep imagining the context for this sweater, even though while I make it, it's very, this focus of my attention is so small. I always have to bring it out again. And that's the exciting thing about making in this way. So Junko and June, I just wanted to pop in a little close-up for you to see this, and I'll try to put on some of my other knits too throughout the video with Sally and Lili, so you can see close-ups of the sweaters. Yes, and I thought we would give you a chance to maybe talk about this palette that you've been working in, or anything you want to say about it.
Well, I think what is so sweet about this quilt is this is one of those things where, I keep scraps of everything, and I had done another, it's Mario would cringe at my alterations, but I did a blouse. I just cut off a blouse. And I threw that fabric into my bin, and I got it out.
Because you love putting our clothes in your quilts.
Yeah, and that was mine, which I, look, a linen blouse that I thought was so pretty. And then this is a piece of it's a tablecloth or a linen of some sort that I have cut up many white upon white quilts. Remember those? And this was a little piece of it, and that's all hand done, probably by my grandmother or my great-grandmother.
There
it is.
There it focus.
And I put a blue piece of fabric behind it so it shows up. So there's,
I hold it a second. I'm going to put my yoke on so that we can be like together. What were you going to say? I'm so sorry.
Well, the other thing about my quilts is they always have, they flow from. They're like stories, and they flow like a little seed from the finished quilt drops off into the next project, and that's what this is. This little, several of these pieces were scraps from the quilt that I completed before this, and like this love fabric, and there's a piece of the drop cloth. Remember the drop cloth that I always talk about, that I was painting the boys' room, and
again, wait. There it is.
So it's just in a Liberty of London, this was a piece of Liberty of London that one of the dear viewers sent me during it was a gift. I got better because I had a lot of love out there, and I'm just telling you, it was something that's so amazing to me, that community that we have,
Yes.
that we all, we're all sharing and care about each other. And that's what that was she had watched and knew that, Liberty of London is a passion of mine, always has been. And so she sent this just adorable little gift of Liberty of London. And I'm trying to think, there's other things.
I'm weaving in my sweater with your story, just to say that her fabrics gave me the confidence to change out my colors, which I was leaning towards doing. And it feels, when I saw that, it was my answer. My answer came from without, not from within, in a way. I mean, it came from within in that I wasn't sure I was enjoying it, but...
Well, the stories just keep passing along. Right. And, and like the back of this quilt, this is a fabric that Lili and I got at Blue Bar Quilts. And we were just having such a joyful time.
To collect
and
acorns.
Jamie collects acorns. So that was kind of an ode to her love of acorns.
And then you have this piece.
This piece.
Have we seen this yet on the podcast?
No.
Anytime? Okay.
I've talked about it, but
okay.
This is a quilt that evolved.
Is this the front?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's a two-sided quilt, but this was originally the front.
Okay.
And what this quilt is while I was convalescing last year, one of the things that lymphoma took from me is my ability to create almost anything. I mean, I didn't have that's how I knew I was sick, was when I couldn't hardly sew strips together. And so what I did as I was coming out, the creative spirit, that source, can't be squashed. So even though I was just mostly couch-ridden, I'd have to say, I spent a lot of time just sitting on the couch. I went through and I ordered fabrics. Fabrics, like it was my joy finding, like I explored way deep in the recesses of the web, different fabric sources. So what my joy would, I'd get packs of fabrics coming to me. And it felt, and it's so silly to think about. It's not silly, but I didn't, maybe this offers hope to people that are watching. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do it again. I mean, I felt like forever, when I was in the midst of it. I posted recently, and I felt like meeting my 70-year-old was meeting my 90-year-old. It doesn't mean that at 90 you can't be creative. But, what I was thinking was my old woman bent over, no energy, ready to die. And I wasn't ready to die. I don't mean that.
Right.
But I was low energy. And so this, when I started back in the spring, I took that batch of gorgeous fabrics and I just thought, I got to do something simple because I don't know that I have the energy to go like, what fabulous design am I going to do?
Right.
And I absolutely love the simplicity of quilting. Is so vast. It's like knitting, but it's so vast. There is such the simple square can be done over and over and over again in so many different ways. And so I just took my cut them up in 2-inch squares and had just the most fun throwing it together. And then what happened, where the story gets, is that I had this top done. And, like Heron would come in and go, oh, Grandma, I just love that. Because, that's what we love about quilts, is sometimes the simpler the better, because the way the colors play off. And aren't these colors that you're...
This is my winter or summer palette.
It is. It's just like
so
amazing.
Funny.
And there's so many just beautiful. There's the gold that you say you can't wear, but it's just in a small little bit of fabric. And some of these fabrics are just all of them.
I just find it amazing.
Yeah.
But the pieces that you worked through.
Well, I was doing this, of getting the energy. But then what happened was, I was doing all this on our very beloved but very messy, dirty, ready to go to the curbside practically sofa. And in the meantime, Jamie and I went out. I think you were in New York with Debbie, if I remember right. And we said, okay, if not now, when? You know, I had a lot of that kind of energy, like I'm not going to wait around for these things. So we went out and we picked out a beautiful sofa that, of course, you have to wait for weeks to get. And we'd been wanting a new sofa for years. But this one just kind of spoke. It was the right time, the perfect. That sofa is so entwined in the story of this quilt.
Oh.
So anyway, so what I was doing was I thought, I'm going to make a sofa quilt. It's kind of a beautiful blue velvety fabric.
I'll pop a picture
Yeah.
of it.
And so I'm going to make a quilt that goes with that. And if you have a sofa quilt, you need to have two sides, right? I mean, you know, why waste a whole other side?
I see. So that.
And so that's how that came to be.
I see.
So I went up there with some of the pieces from the back, because of course when you're cutting 2-inch triangles, there's a lot of stuff that's left in bigger pieces, and I decided to make rectangles and use some of the leftovers. You know, there's leftovers of things that didn't make it into the thing. So it's all very free form, but basically the leftovers from that quilt. And then where the story deepens for me for this quilt is this quilt, really, I have to say, this is one of my most treasured quilts, because when I was coming to the point of making the backing, waiting for the sofa, which seemed like it was going to be forever to get there, and it was delayed, my brother was in the hospital. He went into the hospital the first weekend in June. And so I had just I had gotten the idea of the backing, and I was in the midst of sewing it. And during that month of June, because he died in the latter part of June, I put my feelings about like he had lived so long on his transplant, and his time was coming.
Transplant.
Yeah, and it was just like so long of him going through the stuff in the hospital, and how was his, it was becoming obvious that this was he wasn't going to get out of the hospital, and how he was going to die with dignity. I didn't know. I had fears and concerns and love and just, like all kinds of things in here. And so as I worked on this,
keep talking. I'm just showing them up close, your stitches as you worked on
I worked on this backing, I got called in to say, we think this is going to be, you need to come in if you want to say goodbye to him. And I had gotten the quilt to where you could see that it was a backing. And in the meantime, that morning, I also got the call that the sofa was going to be delivered. And so it was kind of like needing to be there for the sofa to be delivered, and also knowing that he could, be passing at any time, and I needed to get in and say goodbye to him. And this is where this like higher source comes in, because the timing of those gentlemen delivering the sofa kept me. They came earlier than they said they were going to. I got the sofa, and then we just split for the hospital. It was arriving in at a busy time, and the doctor said to me, well, we're going to make him more comfortable now, so this is the time when you can see him. And I was able to go in and be with him and have that moment where he was lucid. He was in pain and he was uncomfortable, but the source, that love, that whatever it is out there, suddenly told me to just be quiet. Don't try to fill this space with your words. Just be quiet. And I just, I tried to hold his hand, and then they're waving like, no, that's too much pain. You can't do that. And so all I could offer him was looking him in the eye and giving him pause. And he looked at me and he said, I love you. And it was like, you know, it was such a moment that had I not paid attention to that swirling, I wouldn't have been there for it. And so I stepped out, and he was, you know, made more comfortable, and, you know, and that was later that day he was able to have, I mean, he gave so many gifts to the people that loved him that day. And he died with a great deal of dignity and a great deal of love surrounding him. But that's in this quilt. And then I came back, and I was left with the, you know, my big brother is gone. Now what do I do? What do I do? You know, and I filmed it. You know, I have some record of it on my Instagram, because I use Instagram as a place to put things so that they're there and my kids can watch it, you know, that kind of thing. It's a personal thing. But the quilting of this is what held all of that grieving and reminiscing, and, you know, like I have a beautiful couple of little blocks that have his fish in it, because he was an avid fisherman. And I just, you know, so the stitches in here are all about
Hand
that.
stitches, yeah.
Yeah, because you know, and I don't know where that came, but what happened is this quilt got done in, you know, I mean, it was just funny. I got it done before Lili came home from you know, in December of this year, or last year. That was my goal, is to get it done, because I was working, that's another whole story, working on another project out in another room. And it turned out that this quilt, instead of being on the sofa that I loved in the living room, went out into the shop, you know, studio.
We'll take you there.
Yeah, we'll go there. And it's the sofa quilt out there. I mean, it's just perfect out there. And so I have it around me. And it's what we do with our makes, is we have them around us to go, this is my life. This is, you know, and so a quilt is a very tangible thing, just as a sweater or, you know, a knit blanket, a crocheted, that you can wrap up and go, I've placed my feelings, my life is in here.
Well, that's a huge thing they do, is they make space and they hold story and memory.
Yeah. And in the process, I was able to get, you know, like the process that kind of amazed me, and we'll get to that, is the being at that place at the end of the summer where I went like, wow, not only can I walk up the stairs without any difficulty, but I can get up and down on a ladder without difficulty.
You're looking at that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know, I look at Jackie and go,
right there.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but keep going. You can go up and down stairs.
Well, all that energy started coming back. So my creative process, and where, you know, this next phase is because I was working on this quilt, I haven't been back up into, other than the little quilt that we started, you know, showed you. And it's quite obvious where these, you know, the color palette came from. You know,
in fact, this is
that's one of those, one of those squares. Pieces. Yeah, and so that's what I meant when you say a seed a seed from one quilt gets dropped and, you know, starts something else. So
I have to say, what this means for me is that it's like, it reminds me of a baby plant, like how plants are stoloniferous, like strawberry
plant.
Yeah, and this is the little stoloniferous little offering, and it has that same A, love, B, abiding, like you will pass through this time as well.
Yes.
You know, like to think that, like, all that you were going through while you were putting these together, you know, because it's really, and the funny thing, and the thing I'm so grateful for to our viewers is, honestly, I sit down with this little mini plan of like Junko in January and say, Mom, XYZ, I'm so busy sometimes, I don't pay attention. And so I just heard you too. And like, I've landed in the quilt with you, and I don't know how I can But that's the way life can go so fast. And then this,
It does. And then you look back and go like, how did I get that accomplished? And, you know, all the things that were accomplished. And then this, you know, the other thing that happened while we were recovering, you know, while I was recovering, and Jamie was, you know, my caregiver at the time, I couldn't do, you know, you reach out to a different art form, I guess, is what happens. You know, there's a creative spirit within all of us. And I know you can relate to that because you might find yourself not able or stagnant or blocked in one area. But if you can just go through and find something else to express yourself, it will be there. And for me, we discovered in, I don't know, it was in late summer. Yeah, late summer. It was the first thing I could actually do, and I think I showed some of those. But, you know,
no one's seen them on this channel.
No. This particular stuff is all of these paper collages that I started doing, which, you know, we'll show you where that all is being done. But they're just like my quilts, because what happens is, you know, like this series of 3 are all from a big piece that I just took and said, I don't like the balance of it, and I cut them up. You know, I slice them up, and then I like what happens when you slice them up. And
will you hold it vertically for me? Because that just bothers me.
The cars are going. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, well, and make it like a composition on the screen. Do you see where?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. I know it's the lights, but still.
Yeah, because they, you know, the glaring of the frames.
Yeah.
But they are so much fun because
and you did them with.
I've done them with Jamie. I've done, you know.
I thought you did them with the boys and Lili, too.
The boys and Lili. I mean, you know, whoever wants to go out there. And then one day I went out and I thought, I just feel like making, you know, I started cutting up squares, and I went, what do they call that memory? Your body memory. You know, like I started quilting in, I think, 1976. And at that time I did traditional quilting over and over and over and over and over and over and over, blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks, loving, you know, just like, wow, this is the most exciting thing I've ever done. And that's what this is in the paper form, was just random. I mean, it was a very organized thing that just kind of came out of a random sitting down and going like, oh, I could take these squares and cut them into triangles, and oh, I really like how that color goes, you know, same color palette, but it needs something in the background, and, you know, all the creative, what if I did this, what if I did that. I love that when I'm talking to myself.
But it was paper, scissors,
it's paper, scissors, and glue.
So it was somehow less taxing.
Well, what it is it's very immediate. I mean, it's absolutely immediate. So it's a good exercise to just creatively flow without, you know, these are not meant to be great bits of art, but I have them. When we get to that, my surprise room is just covered with everybody's art.
I want to read the end of this chapter.
I'd love to.
It says, it may be helpful to think of Source as a cloud. Clouds never truly disappear. They change form. They turn into rain and become part of the ocean, and then evaporate and return to being clouds. The same is true of art. Art is a circulation of energetic ideas. What makes them appear new is that they're combining differently each time they come back. No two clouds are the same. This is why when we are struck by a new piece of art, it can resonate on a deeper level. Perhaps this is the familiar coming back to us in an unfamiliar form, or maybe it is something unknown that we didn't realize we were looking for, a missing piece in a puzzle that has no end.
Whoa, yes.
Can you comment on that?
Yes, I can, because that's exactly it. I mean, it just keeps, you know, being true to that. I guess the one thing that I would share with people is just like, we're all artists. Just do it. Don't be hung up in the product. Just do it. And it is small, large, whatever. Just enjoy the process. And the love and the creative source is there for every single one of us. And it just can't be, I mean, it's against the human spirit to dampen it. And so, you know, I'm grateful for all the young people that I'm around. All this paper stuff started from that year when I was with you, when you were teaching, and I was Artist of the Week.
And
I got to, they all did those paper quilts, and I got to watch a whole school go through and delight at what they came up with. And that's what we need to do, is keep our eyes open. There's, you know, I can look out the window and see this creation of a tree silhouetted against that blue sky, and you know, the ideas are out there. And the sweaters, I guess that's what I'm so loving about what you're doing with this colors is, you know, you have your parameters, but you're free to express those colors as you go. You're not limiting yourself to, I have to do it exactly like the pattern, you know, and that's hard sometimes, but it's so well worth it. Sometimes you have to rip back. Sometimes you have to take a fully blown quilt and cut it into pieces before it's what it's meant to be. This has been fun.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you joined me today, and hopefully we'll get some footage of you in some of, because one of the things that's been fun for Sally too is she's been wearing more of my knits. And that's been fun. So we'll get some footage of Sally in knits. But I guess my takeaway from what you were saying is this sense of abiding, you know, because you've been through a lot this year.
Oh, and such gratitude. I am so grateful. And, you know, just, I can't even begin. I mean, all I can do is it's that old Julia Cameron thing from The Artist Way, which is, you know, our higher power gives us the gift of our creativity. Our gift back is to use it, to offer it out into the world, not judge it, just get it out there. And that's what this next time for me is sharing and getting it, you know, taking the, you know, I've been doing so much time of looking back over what I've made over the years, and now I have the gift of so many young people, 20-somethings in my life, and I really am looking forward to taking my space, putting them down at the table and say, hey, what have you got? What do you want to do? Let's play, and just see what comes of it.
Yeah.
You know, because I've got things to share, but they do too, so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and we'll take that sense of play, hopefully, and we'll play some dress up.
Yeah, dress up. Okay, alrighty.
We'll dress Sally up. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me, Mom.
Yeah, I'm excited for this, Jackie.
Yeah, and it's Sally Journey Quilts on Instagram, and you also have a YouTube channel that you used to do.
Well, yeah,
and you may do again. You know,
I put things out there. It's kind of the history of of my quilting journey.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Well, I love you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I am out in our affectionately termed the shop. This is a little outbuilding that most people in the city of Madison would call a garage that has never seen a car.
I'm going to just pan up at least, and there's clear story windows that face north, huge, you know, fan, and one storage up there, that's the monkey bar that the children always exercised off of.
And there's skylights.
Yes, there's skylights, but I'm not giving the full tour, but I just gave a little tour just now.
Right.
And you painted all of this.
Well, this room was vacated by your youngest son, Joe, when he suddenly announced that he was ready to launch himself into his first apartment. And he had been living out here since COVID. You know, the COVID, he had to stay away from his grandmother because he was sick. And there was no getting him back into the house again, other than for meals and, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yes,
This,
a gym.
He had Joe's gym. I mean, it helped him get through that last year of high school, and COVID shut down, and he had a pod of young men. You know, I had thought about once Joe moved out of this space that I didn't want it to become just a storage.
Lili, and that's where we were just podcasting.
Yes.
That's the debris from the podcast.
I love debris
and
from
the sofa. And if I come back, sorry for the Blair Witch Project.
Those are from Stephen and Penelope's shop that Lili brought back from Amsterdam.
Oh,
she had a little side trip. I love them.
So it's not like it's high, you know, it's just, it is a garage.
It's a garage.
But it's also...
But it was, you know, it's 20 years old. Well, what happened is that after my lymphoma and the treatment and all that, I just had this like resurgence of energy. What it is it's playful, not taking itself too seriously. Much of the furniture after this beautiful table came from our flea marketing, our thrifting. I mean, it just was like everything sort of fell into place in a way, you know, and what my goal was to paint it something that made it coherent, but yet not taking itself too seriously, and things that I couldn't do in the house. You know, I had to take everybody else's tastes into account in the house. We have such a committee to work from. And out here, I used, just probably 24 of those little Benjamin Moore sample jars, and just kept painting strips of color until I came upon the green in the background that we sat and podcast against. And the green is called Liliana.
Oh.
Which is Lili's name. And I, you know, and she was
there she
gone
is.
at the time
Sorry,
when
Lili,
I picked that color out. Because I was picking these colors out in the end of August, beginning of September, and I thought, oh my God, if that isn't a sign. And I love the back. Yes, well, I mean, it is. And I always laugh about it because I go, oh, this resurgence of love of everything mid-century is me, you know? I mean, it's like, it's just such a funny thing.
I don't mean to debate with you, but I see nothing mid-century in here.
What's mid-century is the color scheme.
Oh, the palette. Okay.
The palette. This
I like
brown,
the doors,
this green,
the dark doors. I think that what this provides is sanctuary, because it's often away from the house. And like
it is. I call it a room of requirement.
Okay, so tell us more about that.
Well, the room of requirement in Harry Potter was the place that would change to be whatever you needed it to be. And so coming out here is like a little cabin in the North Woods. It is like in the evening, the light is soft. It's also a place to let the family and our friends come and play. So, you know, like if you want to
learn to knit.
If you want to learn to knit, if you want to listen to music loud that nobody else wants to listen to, you can come out here. The only thing I haven't done on purpose is it's not a movie theater. I don't want it to turn into too much media, because I want it to be a place where you can kind of come and on. So it's an invitation. I have games in one of these black tubs. There's games. So if you wanted to do that, I mean, this is and
there's even a place to nap. I believe you mentioned this when we podcasted yesterday. You said, I didn't have the energy to finish the quilt that's now finished sitting on the sofa. And then you were so surprised that you had the energy because you painted all of this.
Oh, I came out here and not only painted everything, but I had to get up on the ladder and wash all these windows, you know, and get the screens down. I had so much problem solving here to figure out how the screens came out, how, you know, I don't know, there was just one problem after another that I had to figure out the solution to. And so it was like my brain was on fire. And the color choices. And yes, I painted everything in this shop. I painted twice, if not more than that. And I did it like a couple hours a day. It wasn't like, you know, I didn't exhaust myself. I'd come out here.
But the only thing I needed to do was what?
Oh, the only thing I needed help with was the very high cathedral ceilings.
Yes, so the boys had to do that.
And they'd never done this kind of painting, but they weren't working together, because as soon as they got together, they started hanging off the bar. They started doing brother cuffing around,
Yes,
wrestling.
we're familiar.
And so it was just a beautiful day of, because of their work schedules, one got dropped off and the other one got picked up.
Oh,
and so they worked separately, and it was just so efficient and lickety split. It was done.
Yeah, nice.
And so what I love about this place is that a hammer and nail can go anywhere here. You can nail in anything, and it's,
so it's a gallery for whatever you guys are making.
It's a gallery, and it can be a changing gallery. It can, because it will.
Yeah, because there's stacks of paper over there. Art, it's literally stacked up thick. You can't even, it's not even all on display.
No, because I've been in the process of going like,
but I think it's kind of fun that
I
way.
love it that way. I mean, what I'm kind of envisioning is, how you go into artist studios and you see all the art sitting on the floor and in the, like it's just kind of around. Because where the fun is the creating the art. And, and I kind of got carried away. I didn't get carried away. I discovered, I've always felt this way with the boys from the time they were little, and I always gave them the best art supplies. Well, you did that too. Christmas would be just beautiful pencils and markers, and they had the right kind of paper. And so their artist selves were always like working in those beautiful mediums. And then I always framed their stuff. Those cheap little black frames, and I had their art all over the house. I still have some of their art in the house. And this is like a resurgence of that, because I discovered, these frames aren't that expensive. So I've stockpiled frames so that when someone comes in here and makes something, not only do they finish it, but they can frame it, and it can feel like, it's valued. Because there's something very valuable about framing.
Yeah, that reminds me of Trish in California. She really treasured the artifacts from her life, and she would frame things like little bits of a menu or a little note or whatever, the mementos that like, the world is vast, and so it made the world, enclosed you in like love.
Oh, yeah, it's all about love. I mean, everything in here is about love. I have some of my quilts in here.
Sally in action in her plum sweater, folding the quilt on the shop sofa she told you about.
It was interesting because when I was unveiling this to many of my friends and family, everybody, when they first came out here, was expecting to see a sewing machine and shelf upon shelf of fabric all neatly put in there, and that I would have a quilt studio. And what I hope I get across in this is that this is not about me and my art studio. This is about our, it's very much of an hour, a give back, a place to come if you need a nap or whatever you need. This is, the room of requirement. And so I love coming out here and making things, but I also love it when we have, and I want to encourage doing more of this, is to provide mentoring. Like I could see you sitting at this table with a few people, and you're teaching these young people like Heron wanting to learn to knit his mittens. I could see you sitting around here with music going, and you've got this group of young 20-somethings that want to learn to knit.
I'd say you're a prodigy. I know. Well, let's get that other mitten done.
Yeah, let's do it.
Or they can play with paper, or they can do any numbers of things. Joe has come in here like when everything gets too hectic in the house and he comes over. I've noted he comes out here and, there's a framed picture behind us that he leaves these things behind that he just draws or experiments with a different medium. It's just a lovely evolving space.
Well, thank you for
And I've loved sharing it with you because I've been just like, whoa, I am the luckiest person in the world.
Yes. Well, we're lucky that you're in our world.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom. These are two of my favorite people in the world, Sally and Lili.
Good
And
morning.
Good morning. And Sally's my mom, and Lili is our beloved family member. Yes, she's just our adopted daughter. So
Granddaughter, whatever.
granddaughter,
Anyway,
daughter,
we've been,
friend.
yeah, she's our
Yes.
love.
And I have a microphone, which I'm going to hand over to Lili in just a minute. But we're doing a special episode about Junko Okamoto. That's sort of our excuse to come on today.
Mm-hmm.
And Sally's wearing the Plum. I'm wearing the Bouquet. And
I'm
Lili
in the process.
And Lili she's in the process, but she
Plus
has.
you have an older version.
Yes.
I do have an older.
Yes. So we have we have a bunch of Junkos to share with you. Can you tell folks about, do you mind telling them where you were at? Because it's sort of a mecca of knitting, and any knitting observations that you had from that experience.
I'm Lili. If we're meeting for the first time, I was abroad the last 5 months in Ireland, and I was staying in Galway, and I spent 2 weeks before the semester just exploring the country and traveling from Airbnb to city, and I knew I was going somewhere where knitting was big, but it was really cool to go and be able to feel really heavy hand knit sweaters almost everywhere you went.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought back one of the first things that I brought that joined my wardrobe when I was there was an emerald green sweater that's handmade, I think, in Donegal. It's really heavy and really beautiful, and I didn't think I was going to take back as much as I did, and that was the very first thing, and I was like, oh, that's so heavy. Yeah, it was really special how that knit came into my life. I was just wandering and taking in whatever I would find, and this man I just like entered this building where they had all these hand knits in the window, and this man, it was an older guy, and he would just talk to me for probably an hour about teaching me the different stitches and what they mean to Irish knitters in their heritage and telling their family story. And
Really?
and he
What's an example of a stitch?
So the honeycomb, I think, as worker bees, it represents how worker bees work extremely hard to create their homes and provide for their families. And so certain families will put honeycomb into the sweaters that they give their family members.
Well, should we lead into the Galway and what you're doing with Galway yarn?
Oh, yes. So Sally's such a sweetheart. And while I was away, she looked into yarn that was made in Galway in Ireland. And it's undyed and completely like super rustic, and she had it shipped back to our house so that by the time I got here, she's like, look what I found for you so you can make something and reflect on your time in Ireland. And so that's what I'm making right now. It's my Junko in January.
And with honeycomb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making the Hana sweater by Junko Okamoto.
Oh.
And so if anyone knows how this is I describe it as a patchwork sweater, made in flat, and then you seam the pieces at the end. I think that this yarn really accentuates the different textures that Junko has put into there, and I think I was drawn to it because the model sweater is an undyed rustic yarn like this that Junko had spun herself.
Oh.
And while I didn't spin this yarn, it is really raw and unprocessed, and I thought it would grip these different textures really beautifully.
It's beautiful.
So I have one half done, and to model how big it is, size 3.
This one has sizes?
Yeah.
Okay, because all the ones I've knit, I feel like haven't had sizes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, so
And will you seam it with a contrast color or seam it in the same color?
The model has it seamed with a red embroidery thread, and I've been toying with the idea of each seam a different color so it could match many things.
Oh, fun.
Or the red was really pretty too. I'm pretty confident in what my colors might be, but if I look into that and find one that's like
Melissa?
striking, yeah,
Mhm.
then I might pick one similar to that.
Oh, that's a fun idea.
There's
the
a
breed.
whole history. The breed. This is the Galway sheep.
That's
That
what they're called.
Ireland. There's a little co-op of farmers that are bringing this back.
And has this helped you come home too, like kind of transition home, having like a knit like this that's about where you were, but now you're here? I imagine there's a lot of like settling you do as you make your way back.
Yeah. They talk about everything I've read about studying abroad says that coming back home has an element of difficulty and adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been very fortunate to have this really easy transition back. And I think that's the love in my life, my family. I think it's also that the whole time I was abroad, I was reflecting on all the things I'm grateful for in my life. I really love working on this
Glad
thing.
that you'll probably be sad when this knit ends.
Yeah, but I think it'll be very wearable.
Yeah.
I don't tend to make really bright things like this, but I think this is going to be a really comfortable, beloved heirloom. Knitting in winter, this flat project is really nice because it keeps your lap warm, and it's really thick and
It's like doing a blanket, really.
yeah, and it's light, so your eyes aren't strained.
I have to start being more when I love, like, so you said heirloom and you said bright, and I happen to have the other Junko sweater.
What a transition.
The bright sweater here. And this is one of these one size. But it's in the future, though, I always just thought neutral, the color of the sheep. But now I want to be much more intentional about choosing my yarn. Even these natural colors, there's warmer ones and cooler ones, etc. There's ones that are less yellow.
Yeah.
And I find I love
It's
this.
beautiful.
Look at this sleeve.
It's just so illuminated in this light right
Right.
now.
Yeah, she is just a genius.
And her
Oh my
you
God.
really do need those rustic yarns to show her textures because they're just firm and they let these beautiful things. But the plum is hard to wear
Another
because
Junko.
it's so big.
Yeah.
And what part of me was thinking I could can you just stand right there? You could take
How
this
beautiful that is.
and re-knit it as a vest, for instance, and just
Keep it open.
keep it, you don't have to, you could use those beautiful cables and just have it be fitted and knit some panels and sew them together.
Oh,
Is this
because it
one
is
size?
just
Yes. And or I mean, you could literally, once you've made them once, why not re-encounter her genius and put some of her elements together in different ways? Because she's like, thank you, Sally. You know how there are stitch pattern library books? I mean, her is like a stitch pattern library book. They're just incredible elements. I've never seen, for instance, to see the little braided rays. It's really incredible. Do you want to share with us your other Junko sweater?
This Hana sweater is my second Junko, but I don't know that I've ever shared with the world the first Junko I made, which is the Taro sweater. And I can't bring myself to wear it because it's so cool. I don't know what to do with it because it's like something, I don't know. I put so much detail. I mean, it's not my pattern, but it just requires so much embroidery detail.
It's just gorgeous.
That, I have worn it once or twice, but it's the infrequency. I need to wear it more often.
I have a black and white striped shirt I feel like you should try wearing under.
Maybe it's the styling. Maybe I'm not sure.
We have to play and style you.
I will say though that the one time I wore it inside out because I think it's so graphic and interesting.
Oh,
Even,
wow, look
even
at that.
even the floats
Mm-hmm.
look like they were made to be
Yeah.
worn on the
Oh.
outside.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
But I can't even remember how long this took me, but it was a while.
Yeah,
It took a long
a
time.
long time.
And it wasn't the knitting so much. I think it was
It's the
the embroidery.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it was so sweet because when you left for Ireland and you could only take a certain amount of things, you said, you can use this, Sally, while I'm gone. And I only wore it once, but I wore it to a lovely APT, which is like a Shakespearean outdoor theater. And I was the hit.
Wow, it's so soft.
I'm just saying the sweater was the hit. I was just wearing it, and I've never worn anything that so many people came up to me and were like, "Oh my heavens, did you make that? Or where did you get, all those?" It was just, and I'm like, "Oh, my Lily made that, that's just beautiful."
Look at the little X's that she had to put on.
Oh yeah, each of those are X'd over with little. I
well.
love the colors that I picked.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gray, a white, a black, and a brown. But I don't know that I love them on me, which may be why I haven't worn it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Mhm.
so magnificent and such a feat that I think I want to make it a little more oversized and in stronger colors.
That was the other
Oh.
thing that you didn't really like about it when you got done, is it wasn't as oversized, because you're such
Yes.
an incredibly tight knitter, and I
Oh,
don't say that in
yeah.
a negative way. I mean, you're
No,
just
I'm just sure that
so
impacted.
precise. But and I think it turned out you kept thinking it was going to be
Yeah.
oversized, and
Yeah.
for me,
Mm.
then it came like, whoa.
right. We're beside ourselves. We're gonna try it on. Hold
Okay.
on.
Well, let me get my
Sally.
glasses.
Oh my god, it's perfect on you.
My
And
God,
we'll
I mean,
pop
I
it in
love
there.
it, and see it, and it's oversized, but it's like
It's
for
just coming right
for
to
a
the
petite
top of
person,
her thigh.
Well, and maybe also the size matches the length of
Oh,
your arms.
yeah,
too.
it really
That's what
fits
it is.
Sally
Yeah,
well.
I know.
And the neckline.
Oh, it fits you so
And the
well,
color.
Sally. I can see what you mean. It's not oversized enough for your size
Right.
or my size.
But the
But
color.
look at that.
Wow.
Okay, give us a twirl and don't do anything unnatural, like just get stuck.
Oh, you too. I was never,
So cute.
Okay.
decide.
Oh, it looks amazing on you, Mom.
Well, like I said, people stopped me.
Oh
I'm
my
not used to
God.
that. Like,
Oh,
It's fun.
okay, we're on. So, well, here it is.
oh, it's cute on you too. Look
It
at
looks
that.
good with a shirt underneath.
And
a
those
collar.
pants.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I have this black and white striped shirt that might look really good with
An arm.
So you were saying though,
Oh my God,
it's
isn't it
really,
beautiful?
really Sally. Though.
But it looks beautiful on you too. But I do think it's my color.
Yeah. Okay.
know.
Hold on. Okay. Well, that was fun.
Can go.
I love what you said that you'd be willing to re-knit it.
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As they were trying it on, I felt the thing I love most about it, perhaps, is the really squishy folded over V-neck,
Mhm.
and it's just the wrap over. It's just so good. Yes.
And I'm just showing my update on the twigs that it is getting more of this
Oh, that's
big
beautiful.
floral motif. And
This is so fun, Jackie, because we're watching this. You are on such fine gauge
yeah, there's
that we're just watching this evolve. It's kind of like when you did that vest.
But the fabric does feel very cohesive doing the color work with Birdie.
Mm-hmm.
And then having the main yarn be a 50% wool, 50% alpaca. They
Mhm.
blend really nicely. And on the very first video, I said these videos were going to come more frequently, and they were going to be about the process, about the maker, about us, ourselves. And to that end, I wanted to drop in. It's January, and I'm knitting Junko Okamoto. There's been a tradition of Junko in June, and I said to myself, when I cast this on, it would be Junko January to June. I'm giving myself till June to finish this. There is a video coming with Lili and her Junko Okamotos and Sally, and but I wanted to pop on today. I say pop on, but slow down with you today
and talk about something that's really altering the way I knit. So in the past, I would knit and I would look at my hands and I would need the garment to delight me on the needles and feed me just from that one encounter, the knitting of it. But I want to have the delight move beyond just the knitting of it into the wearing of it, into the incorporating it into my life. And furthermore, I want the garment to suit me. And I was always conscientious about fit. But I also would say I was much more, and I used my knitting to investigate color. And all those investigations are fabulous, and I love them. So this is the Twigs by Junko Stewart. As I was knitting it, I popped on Instagram to tell you that I was bored with my color choices. I didn't want a whole sweater just like this. And I decided to add a little bit of color. And at the time, it felt very risque, and I talk about that in another place. But I persevered, and I did the big color work over the chest in the original color, and then I'm thinking to myself, I'll incorporate these in. But the piece I want to add today, that I want to show you, that's so different, is this idea of the poem. And I mentioned this before elsewhere in here, but I'm going to elaborate a little. The literary theory by Rosenblatt of reader, text, and poem means that the reader is absolutely necessary to the text. Without the text, it's just inert, it's sitting there, it's potential. The writing of it is already past. The artist had that experience, but now the product's out there, the text's out there. It requires a reader. And the way the reader approaches the text and the experiences that the reader brings to the reading and how it changes the reader's life, the interaction that the reader has with the author, that bringing the text to life in their imagination, that's the poem. And I see that so much as a metaphor also for our knitting. And I hadn't really spent enough time in the space of the poem and what that meant to me. But this morning I'm going to show you an example of what that means to me. What that means to me certainly is that I had to suspend my skepticism and knit into this sense of joy, this sense of surrender, this sense of welcoming what could possibly be, and just listen and welcome the ideas that were coming and let them move through me. So that idea was to add 3 more colors to this colorwork sweater, which feels a bit like sacrilege to change anything that Junko Stewart does. And I haven't been happy with what this looks like on my needles, but I'm much happier with what it looks like on my person. I really feel like if I'm the reader and this is the text, or the poem can be, one of the things it can be is just simply what the sweater looks like on me and what it does for me. But I also wanted to show you about this intentional knitting. This thoroughly delighted me, and I'm going to just show you right here. Create outfits that are amazing. And an outfit is not a good enough word. An outfit doesn't convey anything of what a woman wants. She wants to go out into the world and cast an aura and make an impression and delight people and be delighted and enjoy the dance of being alive. And this is part of that costume of being alive. This is the poem. And this would look beautiful with this, regardless of if I hadn't put the laughing for good day and blue. Putting that in there, let's almost gives it a little bit of breathing room. It gives the pattern a little bit of receding and coming out, receding and coming out, that I really appreciate. So I'm really happy with what's happening here, and I'm really happy with this chance to let every knit be this deliberate going forward. And I just definitely want to have these conversations where I'm expanding into the atmosphere of my knit, and I am the atmosphere of my knit, the maker, the creator. This is the thing on this channel I just want to keep leaning into with you, is how I do know how hand knits feel differently. I know you guys do too, but I feel like I know it even in a different way because I work at a clothing shop with beautiful, beautiful clothes. And yet there's something about a hand knit that is on a different level than the ready to wear. And the ready to wear is fabulous and amazing, but there is something so there's something energetic in hand knit that cannot be in something that's one of a kind that you're designing for yourself, that you can't go into a store and buy it. And those are cliches in the making world by now. Those are cliches, but I actually want to lean in really hard to that and go, it's not that. I think we often leaned in so hard to the object was like an heirloom, or the object was amazing, and like, let's look at this object and maybe we would even covet the object. And instead, I want to think about with you how it makes your life, your experience of going through the world different wearing these knits. That's what I'm interested in. So when I put that blazer on with that sweater, it was a moment of aha, a moment of poetry, a moment of, this is why I'm doing this. This is worth more, this slow, deliberate, yet risk-taking, delayed gratification, knitting into a future, having limited my palette, not needing the flash all to be in the sweater, but instead the sparkle will be in the interactions of the pieces on and with me. That's where it's going to be. It's going to be a dynamic between me and what I wear. Not all just a yoke. Here comes a yoke. That's not what I want anymore. I want it to be I want my knits to be like lovers, I want them to be delighting me and charming me and having these small moments of witnessing and appreciation and delight. And they can bring us all of that. They do not need to be, I can get perfectly great sweats. I can get perfectly great turtlenecks. What I'm looking for in my knitting is like the magic of knitting into myself. So I'm so grateful for every single one of you who've been here, who've been enjoying this Checks and Rose channel, and I look forward to carrying on with you. Absolutely. Okay.
And the birdie glows.
Yeah. So.
Oh, that is so
And this
pretty.
is your second one, isn't it?
Not my second Twigs. I've never knitted Twigs before.
Oh, I thought you'd made
No.
Twigs.
You have a Plum planned, but I have to
I do.
say, in Plum land, this either needs to get stabilized, like with ribbon or something that they put in suiting, so it doesn't stretch, because this neckline is so broad. It fits Sally better when you were bigger, and now it's doing the same thing to you that it does to me, which is just, it literally just will slide right off.
Yeah.
I think that's hot though. Like when
Oh.
I
Yeah, see,
make
she
it,
could wear it.
Oh,
when
and
I
that
make
would be
it, I would wear it like falling
Oh.
off one shoulder.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm so
Yeah, and she'd wear a more drapey kind of
Okay,
like
fine,
fabric, wouldn't
fine.
you? Something
Okay.
that's got
Yeah.
a little
So,
bit.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, this little
Yeah.
like
Plus, mine is like a mauve purple. It's like a
okay.
pink mauve.
Oh, you've
So-
even
so
got it
pretty.
picked out.
Okay,
So you're,
yeah.
Yeah, I just need to learn that cast on. It's intimidated me.
Oh, I just cast on the way I always do, like with the little.
It was just so, wasn't it so tight?
No, look at it. It's fine. It's just your standard tubular cast on.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'll get
Nothing
there.
will stop. You've got
How
a
to
few
do
things ahead of you.
I'll get there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. And before we go, do you want to show your bling?
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So this is a funny story. I, like 3 days ago, asked Sally to go to the craft store with me as an outing if she wanted to make someone a birthday gift. And then I picked out this yarn and ended up making a shrug. I think the gauge of a Sunday shrug.
Okay.
But it was so awesome that I have kept it, and I am not giving it away. So
Okay.
And we won't even say whose birthday you were considering, because then that way, not
my
that they're
goodness.
necessarily. But yes.
this is a made-up dimension and stripe pattern of a shrug that has become mine, and I wore this vest because it matches today.
Very good.
So I'm not sure. I've said this to so many people, and
It's
people
chenille or something.
no.
It's like a
Velour.
Yeah, I've said this to people, and I thought more people knew what it was, but Juicy Couture has has
well, that's your age group, you know.
It's
back to
iconic.
her. What about
It's
Juicy
iconic.
Couture?
Juicy Couture has a yarn, and I didn't know they did, and it's in Joann's, and they call it the Deluxe Velour. It's like a bulky, velvety yarn.
This is it.
Yeah, and it's like $8 a skein.
It's
And-
crazy interesting. It feels so heavy. This
It's
feels like a weighted blanket.
it does. It feels that's why it's so soothing
It's
to have on.
crazy. Would you
And-
knit a garment in it?
I don't think it holds in that. I mean, I'd brainstorm it, but
Okay.
what was
You
I going
make
to
a
say
great
about this?
sweatshirt.
Oh, it's the same material, or at least alike to. It's similar to the material that they make those tracksuits for Juicy Couture out of, like the ones that they say
Oh.
like it bedazzled juicy on them.
Okay. I don't know, but I'm.
It's like very 2000s.
Yeah, this is. So, I don't know if you can tell how shiny and like
It's
wool
heavy.
and heavy it is.
I wore it to
Can
an,
we put it on?
yeah, I wore it to an event like 2 nights ago. I hope you can hear me still.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
And I had everyone bury their faces in it. I was like, "Put your face in." They were like, "Are you sure?"
There's one downside though, Sally. What's the one
I'm
downside?
keeping myself. It's the lint, you know. So
It sheds.
Well,
yeah,
it's synthetic yarn, so I mean,
yeah, it's
It
fun.
leaves. We call them
sparkle.
sparkles. Yes, it
Yeah.
leaves sparkles.
So Lily's going to get the lint brush out on the blue sofa, and you know, maybe do a little bit of maintenance where she knit.
Oh,
That's about as big a, you know.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, ladies,
hmm
thank you so much for coming on Jackson Rose, and maybe by June, my Junko will be finished. I'm sure yours will be finished well before then. But at least in June, let's revisit the Junkos, because who knows, maybe you'll have a new one on your needle. Again, thank you for joining us here.
And thank you for coming to my little artist shop. You know, this little.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And we might give you a tour of that as well.
Mhm.
But this is the back corner by the doors, right?
With all the light.
And who's responsible for the art back here?
Much of that is Joe.
Okay.
Joe, our young artist, with
Okay.
marker drawings.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much. Bye, everybody.